FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. And Donald Trump, the value of money, the banking system, the war on cash, is it all connected? Well, I think so. And with us, Lowell Ponte, you know him well, co-author with Craig Smith of a number of books, the latest being The Great Withdrawal, How the Progressives' 100-Year Debasement of America and the Dollar Ends. And how does it end? Well, let's find out from Lowell. Lowell, welcome back.
Well, it actually hasn't ended yet. It continues with an even more recent book called Don't Bank on It, The Unsafe World of 21st Century Banking, Kerry.
Oh, right.
But you're right. These things are all stunning. By the way, we were talking off air about Donald Trump's recent presidential candidacy announcement, and I just happened to be looking at my pundit's notebook. As you know, I'm a curmudgeonly columnist at Newsmax and other things, and these were my notes for that. At his presidential announcement, Trump mocked former Texas Governor Rick Perry's announcement in a sweltering airplane hangar where followers said Trump sweated like dogs. Mr. Trump, for the record, dogs do not sweat.
No.
At least not to shed body heat as humans do. Dogs pant to shed heat. Governor Mitt Romney, another very wealthy person, cooled his dog by putting him atop the roof of a moving car. Trump's event left me thinking some powerful thoughts that you'd appreciate, Kerry. Number one, it's good to see that the lead singer from the 80s hair band, A Flock of Seagulls, has found work. Two, Trump is a patriot. His hairpieces are made in America, albeit from imported Swedish and Russian clippings. Number three, the Donald and his trumpets sounded great on stage. Yeah. Number four, the economy must be improving if Trump is at last willing to make a full financial disclosure. Number five, whatever happened to Trump Casino in the Atlantic City Better Demolition Zone? And I like Trump's plan to buy 2,000 miles of the 5,500-mile-long Great Wall of China and move it to the U.S.-Mexican border. As we pointed out, of course, in our book, Don't Bank on It, the Great Wall of China was a bold idea thousands of years ago. Trouble was, after costing ancient China tens of thousands of builder lives and the modern equivalent of trillions of dollars, in practice, the Great Wall provided little protection for the ancient kingdom, because then as now, corruption is an endemic factor in Chinese culture. So as Craig and I document in our book, Don't Bank on It, detachments of Mongol warriors quickly learned how to get through the Great Wall. You go up to one of the gates and you knock.
Yeah, that's it.
And you offer the gatekeepers a bag of gold to let them pass through. Such bribes were usually accepted. It leaves us wondering, is the same happening today with the technician gatekeepers, the IT guys, of the giant computer firewalls supposedly protecting our biggest digital systems, including those that are too big to fail banks? I mean, think about it. How many million in gold would it take to bribe an IT guy who had all the keys to get into these things? Once China gets in, they could steal or erase trillions of American dollars. They could bring down our economy or national defense via computers to which we've become hopelessly addicted and dependent. And all you have to do is bribe the right person, and you're in.
Yeah, well, vice versa.
So my question is, would Donald Trump be able to protect us? At least we know that President Obama has demonstrated his willingness to open the gates of America's southern border.
Well, these are insane times, and I don't know, but at least what was really shaping up to be an extremely boring political season, not so boring anymore, is it?
Well, I'm looking forward to Hillary Clinton beginning to speak. That will be fun. Instead of just driving around in that strange black van that looks like Darth Vader's helmet.
Yeah, and parking in handicapped zones and stiffing the waitresses on tips and showing her true
seriously,
colors.
What does concern me is when Bernie Sanders is drawing record crowds as a self-identified socialist. that is in the European democratic socialist, let's all vote on whether to take your money for ourselves kind of democracy they have in Western Europe. And the problem is you're getting 35% of young people saying we see nothing wrong with socialism anymore. You see in some polls half or more of Democrats saying we see nothing wrong with socialism. Well, here's basically what's wrong with it. The problem is what in some books Craig and I have called donkey drag on the economy. That is, to make the economy work, you actually have to get people to invest. You actually have to get businesses to hire people and make new products and so on. When we become like Europe, where in any given country, one of the two major parties likely to take power in any given election is an openly anti-capitalist party that is hostile to business, eager to impose massive taxes and regulations on business, that is a huge deterrent to people wanting to invest here as opposed to some country that may be freer. What is it? They have these heritage and other analyses of what are the freest countries on earth. The U.S. under Obama has declined to roughly the range of 12th among the world's countries in economic freedom. We used to be in the top 3. And a lot of that has to do with our currently being ruled from the White House by a former political activist who was largely bent on waging class warfare. Class warfare is not an environment that inspires or encourages the animal spirits that Keynes said were necessary to generate the optimism for people to invest. It's a huge deterrent to investing. And so, pay attention or not, when you have a Hillary Clinton being forced to the left politically, when you have a Republican Party doing what in traditional politics in a two-party system is actually the logical thing, that is, if the left party moves 3 steps farther left, that doesn't mean you'll move 3 steps farther right. It means you'll move 3 steps farther left, too. And so you have the Republican Party with Jeb Bush and others, and certainly in the policies that are being enacted by Congress, going along with the president and empowering the president further on a number of things, the party of the right will move to the left, too, so that it captures more of the center. Of the middle. So that creates in both parties an inexorable pull leftward. And this is not a terribly healthy thing, especially when the country already has 49.5% of households in which somebody is getting a government check or benefit. In that sense, the whole household has an incentive to keep that government money coming.
Yeah.
And so we're being pulled into more and more of a statist society. And that's part of the problem with the politics we're seeing now.
Yeah.
So how do we persuade young people that socialism is not a good thing? Well, I suppose if we could, and if people read anymore, you would distribute the Harvard University copy of the Black Book of Communism, which came out from French researchers a few years ago, that show in the 20th century, socialism and communism murdered approximately 100 million people. But socialism and communism, and they document this country by country, region by region. In other words, this is not a wonderful, positive force in the world. It's utopian, it's idealistic, but it creates a society not compatible with the nature of human beings. And by the way, I don't speak of this in a merely theoretical way. I mean, in 1848, my ancestors came to the U.S. from France to be part of a utopian socialist commune. That was very common. There were about 1,500 French who came in that movement called Icaria, after a French utopian author's book, Voyage à Kerry. And they quickly discovered that socialism doesn't really work in practice, which has been the case in every single experiment. There have been 2 utopian communes, which were very popular in the 19th century here, that actually survived. We know them by products they made. One was Amana, and the other was Oneida. But they did not survive as utopian communes. They survived because the children of the utopians who founded them turned them into joint stock companies. In one case, making silverware, in another case, making radar ranges and other high-quality products. So they became businesses. They became corporations, in effect. But that's what became of the utopian ideal when it could not be imposed by sheer coercion. Of course, what's different in Barack Obama's progressivism and that of many in the Democratic Party, they are willing to impose a massive wealth transfer in the country by coercion. And what young people don't understand, because almost nobody studies economics anymore except investors like us, is that what's being taken is not really wealth. What the government is really taking is capital, which is the green energy needed to create and expand new enterprises or to hire people in old enterprises. And when the government takes away the capital, what happens to capitalism when the lifeblood of capitalism has been sucked away by an empirical government? Well, you wind up with very little enterprise and a lot of redistribution, mostly to crony capitalists or guinea pigs.
Sclerosis.
And that does not make a prosperous society. The other thing, I guess, that people need to remember is, how did we get here? For most of us, our ancestors pulled up roots somewhere else and came to the dream of the United States seeking freedom and opportunity. Do today's progressives really believe that we, the descendants, the people with the same genes as those pioneer investors and dreamers, do we really think that they don't have the willingness or ability to tear up roots and go somewhere else when we become the kind of country, the kind of land that our ancestors fled from?
Where do you go?
Lack of opportunity.
Where's the place to go here?
That's the great limitation.
There's no
Well, we're
place.
going to have to make one.
Yeah.
We may have to imitate the Chinese and find some atoll somewhere and fill it in with sand, the way they are doing off the Chinese coast to make new lands. You remember years ago, the libertarian movement attempted such a thing in the South Pacific with an atoll that was underwater half of every 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The libertarians built a platform on top of it and called it the island nation of Minerva,
Right.
and began issuing coins and postage stamps from Minerva. And then one day, the few people there awakened to find themselves surrounded by 50 heavily armed Marines from the nearby island nation of Tonga, who said, "We are now claiming Minerva as our land." The problem with Minerva or the Falklands or any other island nation is, by the law of the sea now, you control the assets undersea in a 200-mile circle,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore, or is it even 400 miles? In any event, there's
It's
a 200-mile limit
Yeah.
associated with it, so that you could actually potentially control an enormous amount of resources, even if you're only a 10 by 10 postage stamp country.
Yeah, running out of choices here, Lowell.
But we're going to have to find something, or we're going to have to reclaim this country. And I suppose every election, in theory, gives us some opportunity to do that, but we now have a society in which the bureaucracy is so heavy, in which so many people in one way or another depend on the government, that it's going to be a great challenge.
Oh, yeah. And
I suppose our best hope, ironically, would be a major crash, because then we'd have to turn around and start all over again.
so
And people would have to relearn the values that made this country great.
what about a Donald Trump? If he really stayed in there and won, what would happen?
Oh, that would be interesting, because my wife came running into me when Trump gave his speech and said, he sounds good.
He does sound good in a certain level. If you don't scratch the surface too much, Lowell, he sounds appealing. That wall sounds pretty good, as long as there's no gatekeepers there to get bribed.
And you could even turn it into a tourist attraction.
And he knows how to build a wall cheaply.
Advantages.
He can build a cheap wall. No one's better than him.
I guess it was near Las Vegas that they actually built or bought London Bridge.
Right.
And took it apart block by block and reconstructed it in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I suppose, and they've done that by imitation in Las Vegas with the Eiffel Tower and a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I suppose we could just buy all the great tourist attractions in China and bring them here and reassemble them. I mean, China gradually is coming to own this country anyway.
So it seems.
Come visit your own Great Wall in the U.S. But that is one of the ironies of the Great Wall, that after all that effort, it never did work as well as expected.
No.
It was just too easy to go through.
No, it was a waste.
And as you know, the challenge that I see with what President Obama's done is what I call the Obama-mander. It is the greatest gerrymander in history, in which he simply redrawn the southern boundary of the U.S. to incorporate all of Mexico and most of Central America. And just to declare anyone who wishes to come north from there to be a soon-to-be-proclaimed U.S. citizen.
Yeah. Yes.
So Hillary Clinton, I believe, is actually campaigning to try to give these people citizenship even before the 2016 election. Gee, I wonder why. But then these are the same Democrats who also want to restore the right to vote to felons in the states where people who have been felons and imprisoned have forfeit their right to vote for life. The argument, of course, is they've paid their crime to society. Once they're out, shouldn't they regain their right to vote? And to those people, I have a very simple counter question. Well, if we're giving back their constitutional rights, let's also give back their Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And the moment you say that, suddenly liberals begin, well, no, we can't give guns to felons. In fact, we don't even want you law-abiding people to have guns. We want only the government to have guns. That strikes me as profoundly revelatory.
That's funny.
But if you're going to give them back their right to vote, why not their right to keep and bear arms, which is an even more enshrined right in the sense that under the Constitution, voting requirements were left to the states and the localities. Well, the right to bear arms was supposed to be universal.
Yeah, exactly. Unfettered, unabated. Anyway,
by the way, in case you were wondering, Northwestern and others have done their own surveys of felons and find that on average, felons will vote about 88% Democratic.
Yeah, but they're probably not going to vote anyway. But
well, they would if they had a welfare check to defend. You see, this is the beauty of what the Democratic Party has achieved. Not only have they persuaded African Americans to vote for them instead of the party of the great emancipator, even though the Democratic Party was, by historic tradition, the party of the slave owners, the party of the Ku Klux Klan, the party of Jim Crow and Bull Connor. I mean, the Democratic Party was the great party of oppressing African Americans who have now been bamboozled into voting for it. You know, it has the same kind of racial polarization, a divide and conquer politics that it always had. Now it just does it to the benefit of different races, but it's the same old racist politics. They've actually been able to con people into voting for that. But today, the logic of voting Democrat doesn't even have anything to do with ideology. This is why a Democrat politician can get up in front of a crowd of Democrats and say anything, no matter how harebrained.
Yeah.
And it will be applauded because all the Democrats now care about, virtually all of them, is will my government check keep coming and getting bigger? That's the standard of voting, whether you're a professor at a state college getting government money, or a welfare recipient getting government money, or someone on a government grant, or a government-privileged union, or what have you. But it always has to do with the government putting money in your pocket.
Sure. And
they don't really care who else's pocket that money is taken out of.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole Democrat pitch now. And Hillary, I'm sure, will deliver that in the carefully honed fashion it's been done for the last 50-plus years. This is why once upon a time I did a column in the Wall Street Journal in which the question was hate crime legislation. The Democrats wanted to expand that to include exotic categories of gender identity and sexuality. And I said, Republicans should go along with that. They should say, we will be happy to vote for it if you will add one more little category the things classed as hate crimes, and that is hate based on class. In other words, if you argue hatred for the rich or against the rich, that's hate. That should be made a hate crime, just like hate based on race or religion or ethnicity. After all, have you noticed that wealth may be genetic? Have you noticed, Kerry, that wealth tends to run in families?
That's true.
For example, this was my argument in the Wall Street Journal, and I still remember their editor looking at me and saying, this is very funny. This is great writing. And I said, this isn't funny. I mean this quite seriously.
On that note, Lowell, we got to get going. So you got a book offer for us?
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the kind of analysis we're doing here, you can get absolutely free and post-paid in Don't Bank on It, The Unsafe World of 21st Century Banking. To get your free copy of this 256-page book, just call 1-800-630-1494. That's 1-800-630-1494. Or as I like to say, think of Columbus sailing the ocean blue in 1492, but not quite. It's 1-800-630-1494. And it's a great read. It reads almost like a novel. It's not dull economics, but it's just packed with mind-boggling information.
All right. Well, as always, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much for being on, and good luck on the book.
Hey, well, God bless. And yes, it will help you protect yourself from what they're trying to do to you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.